this gothic underground city. We all sin. If I bring a couple rounds with me, then we all win.
Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are proud to present our very first battle report for Into the Bad Zones. Into the Bad Zones is a Necromunda Outlanders campaign and is fought between 4 different gangs, and so you guys will be getting double the action for Necromunda from this point on until this campaign is completed. This campaign will be premiering on my channel every Thursday, and so we'll be going every single week. So instead of doing bi-weekly like we do with our Ash Waste Nomadic campaign with Anarchy Road as well as Warhammer the Golden Age, this one will be on a weekly basis as well, and we have 4 different gangs that'll be fighting out in this one. So let's go ahead and get this campaign started. First of all, this is battle report number 1. It is a standoff scenario. It is a multiplayer scenario that's fought between all 4 of our gangs. First of all, we have the Kiddo with the Children of the Vault, which is her cold Trader Outcast gang, followed by Shade, my little sister. She's got the Mercator Umbra, which is a Clanless Outcast gang, followed by my good friend Dark Lord Mac, who's playing Soylent Green, a corrupted Corpse Guild Outcast gang, and I will be playing the Gung Ho Guns, my House Escher Outcast gang as well. So all 4 of our gangs will be fighting it off in a typical standoff scenario for our very first battle report for this campaign. And the reason why that is the case is because whoever ends up winning this campaign, winning this scenario will get their first choice of settlement territories in order to build their settlement onto as well. There are 5 different starting locations that you can pick from in order to create your settlement, and the best way we figure to figure out who's going to get what is we decide to fight it out. So we'll go from descending order, from the victor all the way to the last gang that ranked out on this battle report, and then from there we'll pick out our settlements and start building them up for our Outlanders campaign. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we will show you photos of all 4 gangs as well as the rosters. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so this is a Sector Mechanicus development phase scenario. This is a standoff scenario that will be taking place during the development phase of our campaign, and because we are playing in the bad zones, we are using both bad zone environments as well as bad zone environmental effects. So because of that, we are playing in an ancient manufactorum, which means that there are at least, and how that works, that there's industrial terrain effects are triggered on a 4-up rather than a 6-up whenever you roll from them. You have to have at least 6 pieces of industrial terrain on here. And when generating credit rewards from a scenario, roll the results twice and choose the highest total. And if a scenario has no credit rewards, then the victor gains d6 times credits. So with the environment done, let's talk about the actual scenario. So for the standoff scenario, both gangs receive their entire rosters for this one, and the objective is to score the most victory points. You earn 3 victory points for taking out leaders, 2 victory points for champions, and 1 victory point for everyone else. Whoever has the most victory points is the winner. Now for rewards on this one, the Outlanders campaign, players get their choice of starting settlement locations based on descending order. So whoever wins and 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place, that's what we'll go about choosing our settlement locations. For credits, so the winner earns d6 times 10 credits and d3 times 5 credits for any of the losers. And in case of a draw, all the gangs earn d6 times 5 credits. Now as for experience, each participant earns 1 point of experience, and the winning gang leader earns a bonus experience point on top of that. And for reputation, you get 2 points of reputation for the winner, plus 1 point of reputation for each of the gangs fighting each other the very first time. And that is exactly what's happening here. And of course, anybody bottles out, you lose 1 point of reputation. So the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about battle plans and deployments. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x4 table. And first of all, I gotta give big shout out to my little sisters, the Kiddo, as well as Shade, as well as my good friend Dark Lord Mac, for actually doing this campaign. The 3 of them were actually really excited about doing an Outlanders campaign and decided to double up on playing Necromunda with me. So thank you very much, you guys, for volunteering to do this. At the same time, I also got to thank them because getting all 4 of us in my office to play this game was very, very uncomfortable. It's not a very big office to begin with. You know, it's fine for 2 people, but 4 people, really, really difficult, which means that every single time that we take photos, my friends had to take their stuff, leave the room for me to take photos, and they come back in and we continue playing. So thank you guys for putting up with that. I really appreciate it because the battle port looks amazing. So anyways, let's talk about battle plans real quick. So what's going to happen is this. The kiddo is actually deployed on the far side of the table, while my friend Dark Lord Mac is actually deployed on the right-hand side of the table. My little sister Shade is deployed on the left-hand side of the table, and I'm deployed on the near side of the table. And for battle plans on this one, it's pretty straightforward. The idea is that we want to take out as many casualties as possible. For my plan is to actually take the command center. The command center is that structure that's right in the center of my deployment area. It's got that huge gaping hole inside of it. My plan is to actually climb up along the fuel dump on the left-hand side. We'll use those walkways to get directly into the command center and basically hold it and fight defensively. I got the sneaky suspicion my opponents are going to try to gang up on me, so that's the reason why I'm doing so. At the same time, when it comes to Dark Lord Mac's Corpse Guild, they're pretty much stacked up along the Tower of Terror in the bottom right-hand corner. His plan actually is to send his forces across those gangplanks directly into me and fight me, at the same time to fight defensively against the Cold Traders who are deployed in the upper right-hand corner. Now, the upper right-hand corner, that's where the kiddo is located at. Her plan is to actually move along the right-hand side of the battlefield, straight down against the Corpse Guild and take those guys out as quick as possible, getting some good elevated positions along the towers on the right-hand side, so that way she can pick off anybody that comes across the battlefield to attack her. Shade, on the other hand, her job with the Mercator Umbra on the left-hand side in the upper left-hand corner near the Quantum Building. Her plan is to maneuver along the left-hand flank and catch me on the left-hand flank as well, and at the same time try to take me out. She sees me as the biggest threat in this battle report. And that's pretty much the battle plans for this one. So the battle plans are, let's go and talk about deployments real quick. So first of all, let's talk about the deployment for the Gung Ho Guns, which is my gang. In the back right-hand corner, that is Cal Jericho. He's the Dramatis Personae. He's also got a Gunslinger archetype. He's also the leader of my gang as well. He's got mesh armor as well as 2 master-crafted hotshot last pistols, a dueling saber. He's also got filter plugs and a strip kit. He's got counterattack, gunslinger, inspirational, spring up, step aside, as well as the commanding presence skills. Next on the left-hand side, that is Mayday. She's an Outcast Hive Scum. She's got flak armor, a last gun, as well as a hotshot power pack. Up in the front, the two front of them, we have Crimson Wind and Deadhead Lee. They're both Outcast Hive Scum. They're both equipped exactly the same with flak armor, wild bows, as well as smoke grenades. And that makes up my first fire team here on my deployment area. And up in the front, I have another 4-man fire team. Up in the very point, taking point, that is One Shot Blonde. She's an Outcast Hive Scum with flak armor, last gun, as well as a hotshot power pack. Next on the left-hand side, that is Preston Garvey. He's an Outcast champion with a gunslinger archetype. He's got mesh armor as well as a last gun with hotshot power pack. He's got a stub gun and dum-dum rounds as well as a fast shot ability. Right next on the right-hand side, that is Scalp Taker. He is an Outcast Hive Scum with flak armor, last gun, as well as a hotshot power pack. And right behind them, that is Sheik Shabazz. He is a Outcast champion who's also got a gunslinger archetype. He's got mesh armor, last gun with hotshot power pack. He's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds as well as the fast shot ability as well. And lastly, the middle of the right-hand side of the battlefield, right on top of the MCI Chemical Works Tower, is my character Scabs. He's another Dramatis Personae. He's got mesh armor as well as plasma gun and stub gun. He's got filter plugs. He's got the Clamber Escape Artist as well as Infiltrate skill. And that pretty much makes up my deployment for this one. So meanwhile, we're going to go to deployment for Soylent Green, which is a Chaos Corrupted Corpse Guild Outcast gang that's played by my buddy Dark Lord Mac. On the bottom left-hand corner of the table on the back, that is Wretchling. He is a Bone Scrivener. He's also got the Gunslinger archetype. He's got a grenade launcher with a gun skull. He's also got Stiletto Knife, Cult Icon, Respirator, Mesh Armor. He's also got the Fearsome skill as well as the Fast Shot skill. Also, his grenade comes with frag grenades as well as crack grenades. And up at the front, we have 2 Corpse Grinders. On the left-hand side, we have Sepsimus. He is a Corpse Grinder. He's got Chain Glaive, Auto Pistol, Flak Armor, as well as Crushing Blow skill. And right next to him is Golgok, who's another one as well. He's a Corpse Grinder with Chain Glaive, Auto Pistol, Flak Armor, as well as the Crushing Blow skill. And on the right-hand side of the Tower, we also have 2 Hive Scum. We have Reek as well as Thrax the Unclean, and those are both Hive Scum with last guns. And following the far right-hand side of the deployment area, we also have the rest of the fire teams. In the back, that is Fecula Flyblown. She is a Pale Consort who's got the weird archetype. She's got a Last Pistol Knife, a Meta Skull, as well as a Respirator. She also has Mesh Armor. She has the Fearsome as well as Overseer ability, and she also practices the Biomancing Psychic Discipline, and she has Stop Bleeding. And up in the front, of course, we have Gur Locke, which is a Outcast champion. Also a Gunslinger build. He's got Plasma Guns, Stub Gun, Dum Dum Rounds, Mesh Armor, as well as Fast Shot. And then finally, we have Fiddlesticks, which is a Hive Scum arm with a Stub Gun. And that pretty much makes up deployment for the Soylent Green. So moving to the upper hand corner of the table, we have the deployment for the Children of the Vault, which is a Cold Traders Outcast game that's played by the kiddo. And here's our first Fireband fire team. In the back there, that is Mr. Sinister. He is a Cold Trader. He's got the weird archetype as well. He's got a sling gun, stiletto knife, as well as a bio booster and photo goggles. He's also got armor weave. He's got the step aside as well as overseer skills, and he's also practicing from the discipline of technomancy, and he's got overcharge, giving him +2 to his attacks. And then right in front of them, of course, we have some more characters. We also have Miss Spectre, as well as Silk, as well as Slick. Miss Spectre is a Hive Scum with auto gun, photo goggles, and flak armor, while Silk is an Hive Scum with last gun, photo goggles, as well as flak armor. And then we have Slick as well, who's another Hive Scum. He's got shotgun with scatter and solid slugs, as well as photo goggles and flak armor. And on the left-hand side of the deployment area, we have another 3-man fire team. In the back, that is Mr. Smug. He's the bosun, who's also got a weird archetype. He's got a shotgun with solid and scatter shot, a knife, as well as photo goggles and mesh armor. He's got the dodge skill, as well as technomancer abilities. He's using manipulate and lumens for him. And up at the front, we have Slight and Ghost, who are both Voidbore scum. Slight on the left-hand side's got an auto pistol, knife, photo goggles, as well as a hazard suit. And Ghost on the right-hand side's got last pistol, knife, photo goggles, as well as a hazard suit as well. And lastly, deployed on the top of the Tower of Terror in the bottom right-hand corner of the table is Wesley. Wesley is an Outcast champion who's also got the Mastermind archetype. That character's armed with a Kroot long rifle. He's got photo goggles as well as mesh armor, and he's also got the Infiltrate skill. And that pretty much makes a deployment for the Children of the Vault. And lastly, we have the deployment for the Mercator Umbra, which is a Clanless Outcast game played by my little sister Shade. On the left-hand side is a 2-man fire team. In the back, that is Chopper. He is an Outcast champion with a Mastermind archetype. He's got a grenade launcher with frag as well as crack grenades, a stub gun that also has smoke grenades. He's also got a respirator, mesh armor, and he's also got the Overwatch ability. And right in front of him, that is Tugs, who's a Hive Scum. He's got auto gun, stub gun, as well as respirator. On the right-hand side in the back, that is Hagar Freelord, the Dramatis persona. He's also the leader of this gang. He's also got the Mastermind archetype as well. He's packing 2 plasma pistols. He's also got a respirator mesh armor. He's got the overseer fixer skills as well as ex-guilder armories and well-connected special rules. And right in front of that character we have Donnie and Darko, who are both Hive Scum. Both of them have bolt guns, stub guns, as well as respirators. And on the right-hand side of the deployment, we have another 3-man fire team. Up on the left-hand side, that character's name is Moloko, who's a Hive Scum armed with a shotgun with solid scatter shot. That fire's also got a stub gun as well as a respirator. Taking point is Rune Dog, another Hive Scum who's got twin stub guns, smoke grenades, as well as a respirator. And right behind them on the right-hand side, that is Soljas, which is a Hive Scum who's got auto gun, stub gun, as well as a respirator. And finally, right in the middle of the command center using the Infiltrate special rules is Tough Shakes. That's another Outcast champ. He's got the Mastermind archetype as well. That character's armed with a stub gun with plasma combat pistol. He's got a chain sword as well as dum-dum rounds. He's got a respirator mesh armor, and he's got the Infiltrate special rules. And that pretty much makes up the deployment for this one. So deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of us will be going first. Alright, so it takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Clanless Outcasts get the initiative on this one, so Shade will be going first. The first thing she does, she activates Tough Shakes. Tough Shakes the champion is a simple action to move through the gap outside the command center, pop up right there on the bottom of the table, and another simple action, basic action, open fire with both the plasma pistol as well as the stub gun and dum-dum rounds, firing both of those combo weapons directly into Cal Jericho. And when Shade opened fired with that weapon as well, she actually fired max charge, if you can actually believe it, on that one with the plasma pistol. So because that put a bunch of wounds directly onto Cal Jericho, actually not only did she wound him, also put a flesh wound on him as well. Ate up all my wounds, which was really, really horrible. Unfortunately, I just flowed my rolls for his Charmed Life ability, where it gives him a 3 up ward save. So because he gets hit, he gets pinned, he's got a flesh wound, so he's now a toughness 2, which makes it easier to injure. But at the same time, though, Cal Jericho is no slouch in shooting or combat, and he is still very much a risk. At the same time, to make matters worse, my little sister Shade did roll up an ammo check for the stub gun. So because that, she will need to roll up she's out of dum-dum rounds, but she will be able to roll a 4 up for her stub gun as well. So she got pretty lucky on that one, all things considered. From there, we then go directly to the Kiddo. The Kiddo's next activation is on Wesley, the champion who's there infiltrating the top of the Kroot long rifle. When she activates him, she takes a basic action and giving him +1 to hit with his Kroot long rifle, and another basic action open fire directly at Scabs, who's on the next tower across from him. Unfortunately for the Kiddo, though, she missed her shot, but to add insult to injury, she also rolled an ammo roll for that character as well. So because of that, she has to roll up to make sure that she can reload that rifle on the next turn. Right after that, my buddy Dark Lord Matt goes next. He then activates Wretchling, who does a group activation with both Sepsimus as well as Golgok. Those guys do double actions to climb up to the very first level of the Tower of Terror, and since they're climbing, they only can use half their movement allowance, so because of that, they spent both their actions doing that. So for my activation, then activate Scabs. Tabs takes a basic action, take aim with his plasma rifle, and another basic action, open fire with it. And I do open fire with my plasma rifle using rapid fire. Unfortunately for me, I only got one shot off, and I also rolled an ammo roll, so because I do have to roll up to see if he can reload that weapon, which is kind of risky since I only got a 5-up armor ammo save for that plasma rifle. But the good news was not only did I manage to hit Wesley, I also managed to put that character out of action as well, putting a grievous injury on him, so just like that, he will go out of action and go directly into recovery as well. Meanwhile, Shay goes next. She activates Rundog and does a double movement along the right-hand side of the battlefield, skirting along the right-hand flank, heading directly towards the fuel depot on my side of the table. And at the same time, the kiddo also does a group activation with Mr. Smug. Mr. Smug also activates both Slight as well as Ghost as well. However, Mr. Smug does a double action, so that way he can use his psychic ability to manipulate lumens, and we'll talk about exactly what happened with that. So she managed to manifest that second power and put blackout conditions on the tabletop as well. So because that we'll be fighting in pitch black conditions, which means we can only see for 3 inches. We can't charge or shoot at anything beyond that unless of course somebody triggers a blaze attribute or uses a last weapon of some sort, which is really bad for the rest of us because for most of the tabletop, most of the gangs in this, none of us have photo goggles. The kiddo's the only one who does. So because that, she can shoot out to, I think 12 inches, which she can shoot out to with her weapons. So she has all the advantages in this situation. So yeah, this could be pretty bad. And because she did a group activation, we have Slight and Ghost. Those guys actually do double movements forward. The simple action to climb up the ladder to the first level, and then another simple action to move up forward. As you can see, they go directly to that gangplank, making their way along the left-hand side of the battlefield towards Scabs. From there, we go back to Dark Lord Mac. Dark Lord Mac also activates Fecula Flyblone. It also does a group activation with her fighters as well, with both Shrimpy as well as Gerlach. Those guys do double movements forward directly to those Jersey Berries, taking cover on the other side of the Slime River. For my next activation, activate Preston Garvey. Does a group activation with One Shot Blonde. Both those guys do simple actions twice to move up forward twice. The first set of actions to climb up the ladder, and the second one is to move along the game plane, heading directly to the roof of the command center. Meanwhile, Shay goes next. She activates Soldiers. The Hive Scum Armor with a stub gun does, sorry, not a stub gun, with an auto gun. Does double movements forward to go right behind Rundog, so that way they can assault on the right-hand flank. So the kiddo goes next. She activates Slick, which is a ganger, Hive Scum Armor with a shotgun. That guy does double movements forward to move 10 inches directly to the steps next to the Slime River and start to make their way directly towards the Corpse Guild. And from there we go back directly to Dark Lord Mac, who then also activates his 2 other Hive Scum, which are Reek as well as Thrax the Unclean. Those guys do double movements as well to go directly to the first floor, so that way they can climb up directly to the first floor of the Tower of Terror. So with that, I get to go next. I then do another group activation with Sheik Shabazz. Sheik Shabazz also has a group activation with Scalp Taker, and both those guys do double movements to climb up the ladder of the fuel depot and to also cross against the grain planks directly towards the roof of the command center, because that's the place I'm planning on holding out and fighting defensively. I got last guns with hotshot power packs, so anybody wants to come at me at distance, I'm going to be able to blast those guys with strength 4 attacks. So Shay then activates next. She also activates Moloko. Moloko does a double movement over to the right-hand side, directly falling behind Soldiers as well as Rundog. And with that, we go directly to the kiddo. Now, I'm going to warn you guys now, for the rest of these photos, for the rest of this turn, I actually took these photos in batches, just because I didn't want to go back and forth taking one photo at a time for everybody. So because I will talk about several activations taking place. So what ended up happening, as you can see in this photo as well, the gang basically moves up forward. The kiddo does a group activation with Mr. Sinister, then activates Silk, as well as Miss Spectre. Those guys double move forward on the left-hand side along the MCI Chemical Works, making their way directly towards the Corpse Guild. Shay then activates the rest of her gang with Chopper as well as Tugs, as well as Hagar Freelord, as well as Donnie and Darko. And those guys do double movements forward directly towards the well in the center of the table, as well as into that abandoned landing craft there on the right-hand side. I then activate Cal Jericho. Dal Jericho does a basic action to get back on his feet again, since he got pinned the first time. Another basic action, open fire with both of his master-crafted last pistols directly into Tough Shakes. Not only do I hit Tough Shakes twice, I also wound him twice as well. So because he goes crashing face down into the cold decking, and he is currently bleeding out with a serious injury. From there, Mayday gets activated next. She does a double action charge forward directly into Tough Shakes and actually sticks the landing on that one. So because of that, she does finish him off with the coup de grace, putting a grievous injury directly onto Tough Shakes as well. So he goes out of action and he goes straight to recovery. And at the same time, Mayday earned 2 additional experience points, one for taking out an opponent and another one because that opponent was a champion. So the last of my actions, activate Deadhead Lee as well as Crimson Wind. Those guys do double actions to climb the top of the ladder directly onto the fuel depot and then use the gangplanks to make their way directly towards the command center. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for this scenario. So here's where I've shot the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, I'm slowly making my way from the fuel depot directly onto the roof of the command center. At the same time, I have Scabs just stuck on the top of the MCI Chemical Works tower in the middle of the right-hand side of the table. He's got an ammo check for his plasma gun, so I got to roll a 5 or a 6 for him to be able to reload that. So the chances are not looking very good for him. At the same time, Shade is also pressing her advantage with the Mercator Umbra. She has her forces on the left-hand side of the Quantum Building, flank on the left-hand side. At the same time, she's got her fire teams moving towards the landing craft as well as the well, which is located in the center of the battlefield. Meanwhile, my buddy Dark Lord Mac is starting to have his guys climb up the Tower of Terror, making their way to the left-hand side of the battlefield to engage you from the left. At the same time, she also has her fighters kind of corralled around those Jersey barriers, setting up a defensive fighting position. At the same time, the Kiddo is also sending her forces forward as well, assaulting from the top right-hand corner of the battlefield, moving along the long axis of the table, directly towards the Corpse Guild, and she also has a couple guys flanking along those gangplanks, heading directly to the MCI Chemical Works Tower. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1. So turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the first thing we roll off for are the environmental effects on the battlefield. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2, and this is the bad zone effects. And as you can see here, when we rolled up on the table, we rolled up a Mutie tribe, which means that these muties will be attacking us randomly. What you have to do is you have to roll a d6 for each of the fighters on the battlefield. If you roll a 1, they get attacked. Now, traditionally, the Mutie tribes actually attack with these like wasteland bow and arrows, kind of like wild bows from the House Escher gangs. However, because we're fighting in an abandoned manufactorum, what that means that these Mutie tribe guys actually use reclaimed autoguns instead, so that part is absolutely insane. And that will last for the next 3 rounds, unless of course someone wants to roll a die to get rid of it. Luckily for this round though, no one actually took shots from the Mutie tribe, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and I get the initiative on this one. So the first thing I do is I do a group activation with Sheik Shabazz as well as Scalp Taker. They do double moves over the right-hand side of the command center, so that way they can protect that gangplank from the Slime River to intercept any Corpse Guilders that might come my way. At the same time, Shade's very first activation is Runedog, who does a double activation to go right behind that Iron Hedgehog, so that way he can take cover and keep on pressing the attack towards my fuel depot. So from there, the Kiddo then activates Mr. Slick actually does a simple action to move up directly to the top of the walkway across the Slime River and does a basic action open fire with his shotgun, firing a solid slug directly into the Corpse Guilders down below. Unfortunately for the Kiddo though, she missed her shot, so not much happens. So because of it, we go directly to Dark Lord Mac. Dark Lord Mac does a group activation with Fecula Flyblown as well as Shrimpy as well as Gurglock. All those guys open up directly with their weapons directly into Slick. Unfortunately for my buddy Dark Lord Mac, most of his shots miss. The plasma shots actually miss, but the thing that actually got him in the end was actually the last pistol being fired by Fecula Flyblown, the Pale Consort. She takes a big action to aim at the last pistol and opens fire with that weapon, hits directly into Slick. Not only does she manage to hit him, she also managed to wound him as well, put a serious injury on that guy. Luckily for the Kiddo though, she passes her initiative check with Slick, so because he does not fall off the bridge, but he is currently bleeding out and he's also open to being attacked and extremely vulnerable at the same time. So from there we go back to my activation and then activate Preston Garvey does a group activation with One Shot Blonde, and once again they also do double actions to move across the gangplank and basically occupy positions here in the left hand corner of the command center. And for the rest of the action phase, I'm taking batch photos once again because we're pretty much just moving around for this most part. So as you can see in this photo, both soldiers as well as Moloko, they do double actions to move up directly behind Runedog, pressing their attack on the left-hand flank. At the same time, Shade is also moving with the rest of her forces as well, with Hagar Freelord right behind that landing craft and sending up both Donnie and Darko to move up to those Jersey barriers. At the same time, Chopper as well as Tugs also move up forward directly to those Jersey barriers as well. Cal Jericho does a series of double movements real quick to climb the top of the ladder of the fuel depot for his first action, and then actually moving towards the fuel depot for his first action, and his second action climbing the ladder, and he's landing right there with his flesh wound. Meanwhile, Deadhead Lee as well as Crimson Wind actually show up right directly into the middle of the command center, and then Mayday does a double set of movements to climb the actual structure for the command center, lying right on top of the rooftop as well. So now my entire gang, except for my leader, is now directly on top of that. Meanwhile, Dark Lord Mac continues on his assault from the Tower of Terror, crossing across the gangplank there, doing double movements directly to the top of the Slime River. On the back is the Wretchling, followed by Sepsimus as well as Golgok, and those guys are making their way to directly attack towards me. Meanwhile, the kiddo then activates Miss Spectre, I believe that is. No, that's Silk, I'm sorry. Silk moves up, double movements directly to the top, single movement, sorry, right to the top of the gangplank of that bridge across the Slime River. She goes up there so that way she can lend medical assistance towards Slick during the end phase. She does as a basic action open fire with her last gun, but unfortunately she misses. At the same time, you can see in the top there we got Thrax the Unclean, as well as Reek moving double movements across that gangplank directly towards the MCI Chemical Works tower to go after Scabs. Meanwhile, Slight as well as Ghost do double movements across the gangplank directly towards the wall of the MCI Chemical Works tower, so that way they can make their way towards Scabs. And I forgot to take a photo of it, I do apologize for this, but also at the same time, Mr. Smug, which was the bosun for the team, does double activations actually to move up directly the ladder of the MCI Chemical Water Tower on the upper hand corner, so I forgot to take a photo of that, but he's also moving forward as well. And finally, here's my last photo of my activation. It was just Scabs. I actually rolled a D6. I rolled a 6 on the ammo roll. So just like that, he has reloaded his plasma gun. And I decided for him not to actually open fire. Just kind of stay put for right now. So that way I can get double actions on the next turn. And with that takes directly to the end phase. As you can see in this photo, when the kiddo rolled for Slick's injuries, he still rolled a serious injury. So he's still laying on the ground and he is still bleeding out. For the kiddo, she actually rolled an out of action result, as well as a serious injury result, but because she got medical aid from that one, she got the chew, so she decided to pick the serious injury because that's, more beneficial. And that pretty much ends turn number 2 for this one. So that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 2, and here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, Shade is starting to press her advance forward with her Mercator Umbra, just crossing the battlefield as quick as she possibly can. She's taking advantage of the full blackout conditions that we have where I can't shoot her right now. At the same time, as you can see, I'm slowly trying to defend the rooftop of the command center in the bottom center part of the table, take up defensive positions in case if the blackout conditions should stop, so that way I can start shooting. Meanwhile, on the far right-hand side as well, you can see that the Corpse Guild is starting to push their advance forward, assaulting across game planks directly towards the command center on the right-hand side, as well as crossing game planks to go to the MCI Chemical Works tower that's in the middle of the right-hand side of the table. Meanwhile, the kiddo is also trying to push her advance forward along the right-hand side of the battlefield towards the Corpse Guild, but is slowly being stopped by them at the same time. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and once again, we roll off for our initiative to see which of us will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 3, but before we roll for initiative though, we have the Meaty Tribes, and the Meaty Tribes start their attacks. They actually open up with the reclaimed autoguns. Most people actually remain unscathed for the most part, but one of the guys, I believe that was, what's his name? I believe that guy's name is, Reek is his name. Reek gets hit by his Meaty autogun. He gets hit, but he doesn't get wounded though. However though, he does fail his initiative test, so he does fall from the gangplank up above and lands right smack dab right behind Fecula Flyblown. But lucky for him though, did not wound him, so he's just currently pinned right now. However, what was not so great is that my guy Scabs got hit as well. He got hit as well as wounded, so he's currently pinned. He's also down 1 wound as well, which is absolutely horrific, so that part was miserable. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3, and the Escher get the initiative on this one, so I'll be going first. The first thing I do, of course, is I activate Cal Jericho. Cal Jericho does a double series of movements across the gangplank directly to the right-hand side of the rooftop of the command center, so that way he's with the rest of his gang to defend that rooftop. And this photo is a combination of 2 different activations. First of all, my buddy Dark Lord Mac then activates Thrax the Unclean, who does a double set of movements across the gangplank directly towards that platform, so he can make his way up to the MCI Chemical Work Tower. And the kiddo does exactly the same thing with Slight, doing double activations and moving along the top of the wall, get ready to use that gangplank to get to the top of the ladder as well. Meanwhile, Shay goes next. She activates Moloko. Moloko does a double activation forward, double sets of movement forward from the Iron Hedgehog directly to the base of the fuel depot. And at the same time, I also activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind actually does a basic action to aim, as well as another basic action to open fire with a smoke grenade. It lands perfectly 3 inches across the gangplank directly on the top of the Slime River, putting up a 2.5-inch circle diameter of smoke going up forward. The reason why that's so important is because smoke grenades, people can't cross against those, they can't move against them either, so that part's kind of nice. So I'm going to stop and try to prevent and buy myself another turn, so that way the Corpse Guild can't attack me. Meanwhile, at the same time, as you can see in this activation as well, the Corpse Guild continues their work forward with Septimus as well as Golgok. Those guys move up with Wretchling in the back, moving across the gangplank so you can get ready to wait for that smoke cloud to disperse. Meanwhile, for the kiddo's next activation, she then activates Ghost, who does dual movement along the walls of the MCI Chemical Works, heading directly behind Slight to assault the tower. At the same time, Dark Lord Mac also moves up, Reek. He actually gets some simple action to get back on his feet again for his basic action, and does a simple action move directly towards that ladder series right there in the base of the tower. Meanwhile, going back to Shade, Shade then activates Soldiers. Soldiers does a double movement forward directly next to Moloko. getting directly to the base of the fuel depot. I then activate Deadhead Lee. Deadhead Lee once again throws another smoke grenade right there in the middle of the tabletop, so that way there's a 2.5 column of smoke right before Preston Garvey, as well as one-shot Blonde, so that way they can't be shot against in case my opponent finds a way to shoot back at me, so it protects me from being shot at for the most part. At the same time, the kiddo activates Miss Spectre. Miss Spectre does a basic action of aim with her last gun and another basic action of fire it. Because she does have photo goggles, she puts it directly into Golgok is the character's name. Sorry, not Golgok. Into Shrimpy. Managed to hit him as well as put a wound on that guy, so managed to pin him down. So that part was kind of cool. And for my next activation, activate Sheik Shabazz. There's a group activation with Mayday, and both those fighters move over to the left-hand side to where those gangplanks are, so that way they can defend against it from the advance coming from Mercator Umbra with my little sister Shade's gang. Shade then activates Moondog. Moondog does a double set of movements forward from the Iron Hedgehog directly towards the base of the fuel depot, getting ready to press her advance forward. And because the kiddo opened up with their last gun directly into the Corpse Guild can return fire. So because of that, Dark Lord Mag activates Speculative Flyblown, who then activates Shrimpy as well as Gerlach. Shrimpy does a simple action, basic action, get back on his feet again, and another basic action, open fire with a stub gun. He misses his shot. At the same time, Gergok also misses his shot with his plasma gun as well. However, the big killer though was from Feculent Flyblown. Once again, Feculent Flyblown opens fire with that blast pistol, taking that bonus +1 to hit bonus to take aim. Not only did she manage to hit Silk, she also managed to wound her as well. And now originally she caused a flesh wound onto Silk, but Silk also had to take an initiative test to see if she falls off the edge of the ladder. Unfortunately for her though, she failed her initiative test. She goes crashing directly into the ground and goes out of action with the out cold result. So even though she does go out of action though, she will make a full recovery, no problem. So going back to the kiddo, she activates Mr. Sinister, does a group activation with Miss Spectre. Both those characters do simple actions, move up forward, and another basic action open fire with their auto gun as well as sling gun appropriately. Unfortunately for the kiddo though, she missed both her shots, so not much really happened there. Meanwhile, then activate Scabs next for my last activation. All I do is do a basic action, get him back on his feet again to escape pinning, and he just kind of stands his ground and waiting his time in order to open fire with his plasma gun. And for the last set of activations, we go the rest directly to Shade. As you can see, Shade takes Chopper as well as Tugs. They move directly to the base of those Jersey barriers, so that way they can do some long-range shooting if they need to. At the same time, Hagar Fleelord does a double move forward next to those Jersey barriers as well. At the same time, Donnie and Darka also move directly to the base of the command tower, so that way they can open fire later on in later turns. And that pretty much makes it the action phase for this one. So the action phase is over with, we go directly to the end phase. And unfortunately for the kiddo, during the defend phase, she did the roll a bottle test for her gang, and she failed that bottle test, which means that she will now need to take cool test now in the next turn to see if any of her fighters actually stick to the battlefield or whether they retreat or not. At the same time, she also rolls up for the injury for Slick, and unfortunately for her, she rolls an out of action result. So because that, she has to roll on the lasting injury table, and she rolled a grievous injury for Slick as well. So because that, he does go out of action and immediately goes into recovery. So with that takes directly to the end of turn number 3. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the tabletop. As you can see in this photo, the Cold Traders have decided to leave. They want to stick around anymore just because they're afraid of taking more losses they already have. So the kiddo is the very first of the gangs to bottle out in the scenario, which means that she'll have the last pick of settlement locations when the time comes to pick out our settlements. As you can see at the same time, I have now fully enveloped myself directly onto the rooftop of the command center, setting up for defensive actions against both the Corpse Guild as well as from the Mercator Umbra as well. Now, if you notice as well, the card that said the blackout conditions is gone because once that character leaves, Mr. Smug, the psychic character, since he left, that condition goes away because his psychic powers no longer maintain the lights being turned off. So now all the lights are currently on. At the same time, my smoke grenades also went away as well because they basically ran out of smoke. At the same time, the Corpse Guild are still setting up their fighters, getting ready to move up the top of the tower to the roof of the MCI Chemical Works tower to attack Scabs. At the same time, assault across the gangplanks, heading directly towards my gang. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and once again, we roll off for the meaty tribes to see who they might be taking out next. So before we go any further, once again, the bad zone effects take place, and the meaties open up with their reclaimed autoguns and disaster strikes. The first thing that ended up happening is that, of course, I'm rolling a d6 for all my gang members, and as you can see in this photo, my man Cal Jericho, my leader, he gets hit with an autogun. Not only do I fail my armor save on that autogun, I also failed my Charmed Life special rule for a 3-up ward save. So Miley hits him, he gets wounded, I roll up to see what happens to him, I roll an out of action result, and because that he rolls a grievous injury. So Cal Jericho in his very first battle gets taken out of action and goes immediately into recovery. Which just goes to show, I know some people don't like the idea of being able to take Dramatis Personae characters for gangs, for outcast gangs, but let the record show, this guy's like one of the most powerful Dramatis Personae characters you can get. Even he got taken out by muties, so think about that. That part's absolutely insane. At the same time, Tugs, which is one of Shade's Hive Scum, also gets hit and gets a serious injury put on him as well. So he goes crashing face down into the cold concrete and is currently bleeding out. Luckily for Shade, though, Chopper does pass his cool test, so he holds his nerve. And just like that, 2 guys have been injured by the muties. So now that the environmental effects are over with, we go directly to the top of the turn. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and the Corpse Guild gets the initiative on this one, so Darklight Mac will be going first. So he does activate Wretchling as a group activation for both Gerlach as well as Sepsimus. Now Sepsimus, of course, does try to, Gerlach does try to charge across the battlefield directly onto my rooftop, but unfortunately, though, he failed his distance, so he only moves up 7 inches in the middle of the other gangplank. So because of that, he decides to move the rest of his guys. Sepsimus moves up, Sepsimus tries forward. I'm getting the names mixed up. Sepsimus charges forward, fails it, moves up forward, followed by Golgok. Golgok moves up right behind him, and Wretchling stands his ground. The reason why is because using his fast shot ability to open fire with his frag grenades from his grenade launcher. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, though, he missed his shots because that the grenades do not actually hit the rooftop. He does roll to scatter, and they go basically in the space between the command center and the Slime River, so they hit the ground, they blow up, nothing actually happens. So that being said, I get to go activate next. I then activate Sheik Shabazz, who does a group activation with Mayday. Mayday takes a basic action, open fire with her last gun with a hotshot power pack, actually shoots it directly into Sepsimus, and manages to hit him as well. And because of that, since that frees it up, I then go with Sheik Shabazz next. Sheik Shabazz uses his fast shot ability to open fire twice with his hotshot last gun, and we'll talk about exactly what the results were from that. So like I said before, Mayday goes first. She manages to hit as well as wound Sepsimus, puts a wound directly onto him. So because of that, he doesn't take an initiative test because he's on that gangplank. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, though, he failed his initiative test, so Sepsimus goes crashing down to the ground like a meteor, hits head first directly into the cold concrete, and takes a second wound on top of that. So because of that, he is currently seriously injured. He's laying on the ground face down on the cold concrete and, vulnerable for anyone to attack. So because of that, Sheik Shabazz goes next. He opens fire directly into Golgok. Managed to hit that guy as well as put a wound on him as well. So Golgok is currently pinned with a wound on him. And instead of actually shooting a second time because he's currently pinned, I decided to direct my last shot because he's got the fast shot ability. Sheik Shabazz decides to put that last round into Wretchling. I do manage to hit Wretchling, but I fail to wound him. But he does have to take an initiative test. He fails that initiative test and he goes crashing to the ground down below. But luckily for him, though, he was not wounded. He is just currently pinned right now. So pretty successful thing. Blunted that that right hand attack on my flank. So pretty happy about that. So Chopper gets to go next for Shade. So Shade activates Chopper, does a basic action aim with a grenade launcher, and another basic action open fire with a frag grenade. Unfortunately for Shade, though, the shot did miss. So because of that, we do scatter it. It actually bounced back 6 inches from the original impact points and lands right in front of the space between them and blows up to no ill effect. Meanwhile, we go directly to Reek from the Corpse Guild. Reek does a double set of activations and double sets of movements, actually, to climb directly to the tower, to the base of the MCI Chemical Work Tower there on the top, where my buddy Scavs is waiting at. And then for me, I then activate Deadhead Lee. Deadhead Lee does a basic action aim with his smoke grenades and puts it right between both Donnie as well as Darko and throws a smoke grenade right directly in the middle of them. And because of that, both Donnie and Darko are now caught in a smoke column. The smoke column does 2 things. First of all, it prevents Donnie and Darko from actually leaving the smoke because they can't move through it, so they're stuck there. So that kind of pins them, which is really nice. At the same time, also creates a pillar of smoke to protect both One Shot Blonde as well as Preston Garvey from being shot at, which is also an added bonus. Meanwhile, Shade then activates Soldiers. Soldiers does have to do his double set of movements to climb directly to the top of the fuel depot because there's no ladders over there, so he has to climb up directly to the top, and that pretty much makes up his activation. At the same time, Thrax Reeking is activating next for the Corpse Guild for Dark Lord Mac, who does a double set of movements to move up the ladders both times directly to the base to meet up with Reek. So those 2 guys are getting ready to attack my buddy Scavs up there on the top of the tower. From there, I do a group activation with Preston Garvey as well as One Shot Blonde. One Shot Blonde takes a basic action to aim and another basic action to open fire with her Hot Shot Last Gun directly towards Chopper. Unfortunately for her though, her shot did miss, which brings to Preston Garvey. Preston Garvey decides to use his Fast Shot ability to open fire twice with his Hot Shot Last Guns directly into Chopper. My first shot missed, but my second shot did manage to hit Chopper as well as to put a wound on him. Unfortunately though, Chopper is a champion, so he's got 2 wounds. He's got 1 wound on him right now and he is currently pinned. But at the same time, I'll take what I can get at this point. From there, Shade then activates Hagar Freelord. Hagar Freelord does a double set of movements forward to go directly next to Donnie as well as Darko, so that way he can get in the defilade, so that way he doesn't get shot from the dead space from above from the tower, from the command center. And then Dark Lord Mac goes next, once again activates his leader, Fecula Flyblown, as well as Fiddlesticks, as well as Fiddlesticks, as well as Gurlock. Those guys do double movements forward directly, the Jersey Berry directly towards the bridge, crossing the Slime River. For my next activation, then activate Scalp Taker. Scalp Taker does a basic action aim with his Hot Shot Last Gun, and another basic action with fire with it directly into Gurlock. Not only do I manage to hit him and wound him, I also put an out of action result in that character as well. So because when we rolled from the injury, from the last injury table, rolled out cold results, so Gurlock will make a full recovery, but at the same time though, that's one less corpse grinder I gotta worry about on the tabletop as well. So, threat from the right hand flank, dealt with. Meanwhile, on the left hand side, Moloko gets activated next by Shade, who does a double set of active movements to climb directly to the same catwalk for the fuel depot there on the left hand flank. And for my next activation, I then activate, once again, my character Scabs. Scabs does a basic action to aim with his plasma gun, another basic action open fire, rapid fire with it with low setting directly into Thrax. Not only do I manage to hit Thrax, I also cause a serious injury on him as well, so because he goes falling face first into the cold decking, he is currently bleeding out. To make matters worse, Thrax the Unclean does fail his nerve test, so because he does run away, he just slides down directly from the ladder, directly onto that gangplank because he just watched his friend getting shot at point blank range with a plasma gun. So from there we go directly to Shade's next activation. She activates Moloko. Moloko does a double activation, double set of movements to climb directly onto the top of the catwalk as well, lining up between Moloko as well as Tugs, getting ready to assault from the left hand side. So for my last activation, I activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind does a simple action to move over to the left-hand side next to One Shot Blonde, and does a basic action to lob a smoke grenade directly towards Moloko. And as you can see, the grenade lands successfully right in front of Moloko as well, putting another column of smoke right directly in front of that catwalk, so that prevents them from shooting at me as well as moving through it. It's not really much because we're directly at the end phase, but at the same time though, if I manage to pass my die roll to keep that pillar of smoke there, that will stop Moloko as well as Tugs as well as Woundog from actually moving in to assault me from the left-hand flank and protecting me for another round. So that's what I'm pretty much banking on. And that pretty much makes up the action phase for this one. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. So during the end phase, Dark Lord Mac of course had to take a bottle test because all the seriously injured fires he has. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac though, he does fail his bottle test. So because of that, during the next turn, Dark Lord Mac will need to roll up on cool tests to see if his guys actually manage to stay their ground or rather they flee the battlefield. And in the end phase, Subsimus is still suffering from a serious injury, so he is still laying on the ground and he is still bleeding out. Meanwhile, on the top of the MCI Chemical Works tower, Reek is still seriously injured, so he is still laying on the ground and he is still bleeding out, which makes him vulnerable to being charged against with a coup de grace. Meanwhile, Thrax the Unclean manages to get his nerve back, so he passes his cool test and decides to give himself an additional experience point for bonus to manage to get his nerve back. And lastly, for the Billowing Smoke, I do manage to pass my Billowing Smoke test, so because that both my columns of smoke are still currently on the top. My bottom one got off with a 6, and the top one down the catwalk got off with a 5. So because of that, the smoke is still active. And that takes directly to the end of turn number 4. So over here's overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see in this photo, the Corpse Guild decided to pull out in the end. Dark Lord Mac decided to bottle out voluntarily just because he took a lot of losses in his gang. He doesn't want to take any more losses than he already has, so because of that he decides to pull out, and he will get the second to last choice and when it comes to picking the location for his settlement. So all that pretty much leaves now is Shade as well as myself. Shade is trying to catch me in a pincer attack by flanking me on the left hand side as well as the front, but I got 2 of her fighters still currently pinned right now because of the smoke grenades down below with Donnie and Darko. I also blunted her advance forward on the left hand side with another smoke grenade as well. At the same time, she doesn't have any clear line of sight to fire at my guys, and my guys can still shoot, so things are looking pretty good right now for my gang. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5, and the first thing we need to roll, of course, is on environmental effects. So directly at the top of turn number 5, we roll up on the environmental effects and we get Chemical Rain, which means that everyone suffers -1 to their armor saves on this one, which isn't really such a problem because a lot of our Outcast guys have no armor right now because we couldn't afford to purchase them armor, so no harm, no foul there. So with the environmental effects over with, we go directly to the top of the turn and roll off for priority to see which of us will be going first. Alright, so it takes directly to the top of turn number 5, and I managed to get the initiative on this one, so because that I will be going first. The first thing I do, of course, is a group activation with Sheik Shabazz as well as Mayday. Mayday does a simple action to turn to the left-hand side, so that way she got good line of sight against Hagar Freelord. She opens fire with her gun, manages to hit Hagar Freelord and put a wound on him, which is all kinds of awesome. And then because of that, she gets pinned. I then activate Sheik Shabazz next. Sheik Shabazz does a simple action to turn to the left, so that way he can look directly at Hagar Freelord. And then there's another basic action, open fire with his second shot from his hotshot laser rifle. Managed to hit that character as well. And just like that, managed to put a serious injury directly onto Hagar Freelord, so he is currently laying face down on the ground, and he is currently bleeding out as well. Now, luckily for Shade, though, she doesn't have to take cool tests for Donnie or Darko, and the reason why is because they're stuck in the middle of a smoke cloud, so they really didn't see their leader, eating one, basically. So with that, Shade's next activation is on Chopper. Chopper does a basic action, get back on his feet again after being pinned early in the turn. He then does a basic action, open fire with his grenade launcher again. Unfortunately for Shade, she did miss her shot. This time the shot went to the right-hand side, I think 6 inches, so because that just dropped and explodes and doesn't actually hit anybody, it just lands in the middle of the concrete, so no harm, no foul. So for my next activation, then activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind does a basic action, aim with his wild bow, and another basic action with fire with it, directly into Hagar Freelord. Managed to put a flesh wound on that guy, so now he's 1 toughness less, which makes him easier to wound. And since Shade can't shoot through the smoke cloud, she then activates Tugs. Tugs is a double movement directly to the bottom of the bottom part of the fuel depot, so that way he can take the next catwalk over to try to start his assault there on the left-hand side. So for my next activation, I then activate One Shot Blonde as well as Preston Garvey as well. So One Shot Blonde does a basic action to take aim and to open fire directly into Chopper. So not only does she manage to hit Chopper, also manages to put a wound on that character as well, which is all kinds of awesome. So as you can see in this photo, Chopper gets his last one eaten up. When I rolled from an injury, I rolled a serious injury, so because that Chopper goes crashing face down into the cold concrete, and he's currently bleeding out as well, which is all kinds of awesome. So because One Shot Blonde took care of that, my next target, of course, was for my character, Preston Garvey. Unfortunately, I can't see the rest of Shade's gang, and I can't shoot the same smoke cloud that I put in front of Moloko as well as Runedog. So the closest enemy target to me is directly towards Tugs, who's on the far left-hand back corner of the table. So I do a simple action to turn Preston Garvey around so that way he can shoot directly at Tugs, and I, once again, do another basic action, open fire with his last shot last gun. Not only do I manage to hit Tugs, I also managed to wound him as well, put a serious injury directly onto him, so because that Tugs goes crashing face first into the cold decking, and he is currently bleeding out as well. Shade then activates Moloko. Moloko does a double set of movements directly to the left-hand side to meet up with Tugs, so that way he can give him support in the end phase, trying to help a better recovery when he rolls for the recovery rolls. I then activate Scalp Taker. Scalp Taker does a simple action to turn 180, so that way he can score off directly against Moloko. I do another basic action, open fire with his hotshot last gun, but unfortunately for me though, I missed my shot, so nothing much really happened there. Shade goes next, she then activates Runedog. Runedog does a double set of movements to go directly next to Moloko, so that way they can assault from the left-hand side as well. And since all the fighters pretty much activate, the rest of my turns dedicated to my guys, I then activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind does a double set of movements directly between Mayday as well as Deadhead Lee, I'm sorry. Deadhead Lee does a double set of movements that go right between Crimson Wind as well as Mayday, so that way he can be able to set up and shoot for the next turn. And for my last activation, I activate Scabs. Scabs does a double set of movements to climb down from the tower all the way down to that little cradle right there, so that way he can make his way directly to the fight and assault from the right-hand side. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And in the end phase, because Shade took so many losses so far, she does have to take a bottle test, and unfortunately for her though, she does fail her bottle test, which means in the next turn, she'll need to roll cool tests to see if her fighters actually stay on the battlefield or whether they flee. So with the bottle test over with, we go directly to the recovery phase. And in the recovery phase, Soldiers actually does manage to recover, he manages to flip over with a flesh wound, so he is perfectly fine, so no harm, no foul there. And Chopper does exactly the same thing, rolling a flesh wound for his recovery, so he flips over right as well. He's currently pinned, and he's also got a flesh wound on him also. Hagar Freelord, though, her leader for her gang, was not so lucky. You actually rolled an out-of-action result, which she rolled in the lasting injury table, rolled a hand injury. So because of that, he will go to recovery. He also loses 1 point to his weapon skill, so he will be weapon skill 5 for the rest of the campaign as well. And with that, that pretty much ends the end phase for this one. So here's over a shot of the entirety of the table at the end of turn number 5. As you can see, I'm slowly blunting the advance forward for Shade as well. Now you'll notice we also have 2 smoke columns there as well. And the reason why those 2 smoke columns are there is because I don't really bother rolling for them, because at this point Shade realizes she's not going to be able to defeat me. I pretty much have my entire gang still, and her gang is slowly falling apart. So because of that, she voluntarily bottles out. And with that takes us directly to the end of the game with a victory for the Escher Outcasts as well. Winning my very first game in the Necromunda campaign for our Outlanders campaign, and also ending our very first scenario as well. So because of that, we go directly to the post game. We'll roll up for exactly what happened to each of our gangs, and we also pick our locations for settlements. So that being said, we'll go directly to the post game because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, first of all, let's talk about the Children of the Vault, the cold Trader Outcast gang that's played by the Kiddo. So first of all, she actually suffered 3 injuries in this one. Wesley and Slick both suffer grievous injuries, so they go directly into recovery, while Silk only suffered an out cold result, so she makes a full recovery, no problem. For advancements, no members of her gang advanced from this time period, and for her settlement, she decides to establish her first settlement called Sanctuary, and it's located in the edge of the Hive as well, so that's where it's located at. The edge of the Hive will give her a 5-up on defense, 5 up for resources, as well as 2 up for toxicity. At the same time, she also gets an isotropic fuel rod, which gives her 10 points for power, as well as water still, which gives her 10 points for sustenance. From the trading post, she earned 15 credits from the scenario. She puts it directly into her stash. And for her reputation, she earns 3 points of reputation for fighting against all the other 3 gangs for the very first time. Her current record now is at 0 wins and 1 loss, and her new gang rating now is at an even 1,000 points. Up next, we have Soylent Green, which is the Chaos Corrupted Corpse Guild Outcast gang that's played by Dark Lord Mac. As for him, he actually suffered 2 injuries on this one. Golgok, of course, got an out cold result. However, during the Dark Ritual, they actually decided to choose Fiddlesticks to actually become the subject of the Dark Ritual. Unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, though, he failed the ritual roll, so because of that, Fiddlesticks automatically becomes a Chaos Spawn. However, when he rolled for the Chaos Spawn, though, he did manage to get the maximum one, which is the level 6 one, so because he's got 3 up weapon skill, 5 strength, 6 toughness, 3 wounds, 3 initiative, 3 attacks, so he got the best Chaos Spawn he could possibly get, so there is some silver lining. And because of that, Fiddlesticks Stub Gun goes directly into the stash as well. At the same time, from the settlement, he decided to establish a settlement in the Depths. It's called Mauville, is the name of the settlement. In the Depths, he's got a 6-up defense, 3 war resources, as well as 3 toxicity. He also has an isotropic fuel rod, giving him plus 10 for power, and a water still giving him plus 10 for sustenance. In the trading post, he earned 10 credits from the stash, and once again, placed Fiddlesticks Stub Gun directly into the stash as well for another player that he can help recruit later on. Now, from his reputation, he earns 3-point reputation from fighting all the other gangs for the very first time. His current record now is at 0 wins and 1 loss, and his new game rating now is at 965 points. So, following up in the last second place, we have Mercator Umbra, which is the Clanless Outcast gang played by my little sister Shade. For this one, she actually suffered 3 injuries on this one. Hagar Freelord received a hand injury, so he goes into recovery and loses 1 point to his weapon skill, making weapon skill 5 now. Tough Shakes also suffered a grievous injury, which is the champion who's now currently in recovery because of that grievous injury. And Tugs makes a full recovery with an out cold result. For advancement, she actually does not advance at this time, and from her settlement, she decided to establish her settlement inside of a boneyard, and the settlement is creatively called the Boneyard, is what it's called. She's got 4 defense, 4 resources, as well as 4 toxicity. She also gets an isotropic fuel rod, giving her 10 power, as well as a water still, giving her 10 sustenance as well. Now, in her trading post, she got 10 credits from the scenario, but she also managed to scrounge up 50 credits from Hagar Freelord's well-connected rules, as well as the fixer rules as well, giving her 60 credits in total. With those 60 credits in total, she spent 50 of them to recruit a rogue doc named Sawbones, and at the same time took the 10 remaining credits she had left over and put it directly into her stash. Now, for reputation, she earns 3 points of reputation for fighting each of the gangs for the very first time, which brings her reputation points total to 4. She has a record now of 0 wins and 1 loss, and her new gang rating now is at 1,050 points. And lastly, let's talk about the Gung Ho Guns. For my injuries, I lost Cal Jericho, my leader, who suffered a grievous injury, so because they automatically go as a recovery, no members of my gang advanced during this time period, and I decided to establish my settlement inside of a Factorum runoff. It's called Martyr's End is the name of my settlement. It has got 3 defense, 6 resources, as well as 3 toxicity. I have an isotropic fuel rod, which gives me 10 power, as well as a water still that gives me 10 sustenance. And I decided to build a scrap mine for 10, and that gave me plus 10 salvage in order to do that. Now, granted, I ate up all my power resources as well as 5 sustenance, but at the same time, though, that opens up other buildings that I could add to my settlement later on. Now, from the trading post, I managed to get 50 credits from the scenario, and I took those 50 credits and spent all of them on recruiting a new rogue doc named Malakachion is his name. And if you're wondering where that character's name comes from, it comes from the Hired Gun video game that came out for Necromunda. So, and that's the same thing with my settlement. I named it Martyr's End because of that. Which, spoiler alerts, in that game, that's where Cal Jericho is located as, so that's the reason why I did so. Now, for my reputation, I earned 2 points reputation for the scenario, as well as 3 points for fighting against the other gangs for the very first time, which brings my grand total to 6 points reputation in total. My new record now is at 1 win and 0 losses, and my new gang rating now is at 1,000, as well as 45 points. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's good to do it for this one. Our very first scenario for our Outlanders campaign is in the books. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook and Instagram for the latest greatest news related to this hobby on this channel. And remember, we're going to put these battle reports out every single Thursday, so stay tuned for next week to catch the next episode of Into the Bad Zones. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.